everyone.
There you go.
Welcome, everyone, to the Portsmouth School Board meeting on October 28th, 2025. Can we have the roll call, please? Brian's going to do it for us tonight.
Genevieve Buskey.
Here.
Tish Cannon. Nancy Kleberg.
Here.
Pip Clues.
Here.
And French.
Here.
Lee Hudson.
Here.
Aaron Maddow. Harry Nolte.
Here.
Lisa Rappaport.
Here.
Art Moore.
Here.
And Delaney.
Here.
And Jessica Morgan.
Okay, thank you. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the next item is announcements and recognitions. Do you want to start or?
Yeah, a few quick ones. And I'll let you take holiday parade if you want. Candidate forum, just a reminder for people in the community. The Citizens for Voter Education are holding a candidate night for the school board and the fire and police commissions tomorrow night between 7 and 9 o'clock here in the City Hall chambers. And just wanted to say, I think it's important to have a group like the Citizens for Voter Education who are organizing this type of opportunity for folks. And it's a great opportunity for people to come in, talk to potential school board members, have some dialogue, get an opportunity to understand where candidates might fall and what their impact could be on the board and the school district. So, and the other one, and related, semi-related news, if you are a candidate who has children that would like to go out on Halloween, you're in trouble because at this point, I think folks know, but the city has moved. Halloween trick-or-treating was scheduled to be on the 30th because we already had moved off of the 31st because of the parade. And then due to weather, the city made the decision yesterday to move things to October 29th, tomorrow night. So just want to make sure that families were aware of that. We did have a couple of, was up with the 8th graders at Camp Cody today for part of their kind of e-camp type work they were doing. And there were a few students who were bummed to hear that they would be up at e-camp when Halloween was happening. But for the most part, I think people understand. I just want to make sure families were aware. So
I think the trick or treat starts at 5:30, correct? So we don't have to be to City Hall till 7. Well, we have to be there a little earlier, but you would be able to trick or treat for an hour approximately.
now, back in the good old days, Nancy, if you shut your lights off, yes, that would invite, to invite eggs and other things. Not anymore.
Let's hope the parade goes off okay on
Yes.
Friday night. Okay, thank you, everyone. I would like to talk about the holiday. Oh, go ahead. Did you have
Two
some?
announcements,
Oh,
but I didn't
sure.
want
Go
to.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, one is if you happen to be trick or treating and miss the school board forum, there is a candidate forum at the public library that you can bring your kids to on November 2nd at 1:30. And it's for city council, school board, police and fire. And it's a great way to get your younger future voters to see a little bit of the process. And they're the ones that get to ask the questions. So kind of cool.
Awesome.
And I also just want to give a shout out to Nate Watton and all the people at the high school who pulled off the Seacoast Choral Festival.
Mhm.
That is all the schools in the area show up all day at our high school and they have hundreds of students on that stage from all over the region. It's a huge undertaking.
Big
Lots of other schools hosted, but we got it this year.
Mm.
It was pretty cool. So.
Yeah.
He was there. Matt Toby was in the booth for, I don't know, 24 hours straight or something
Yes.
like he always did. And
Yes.
he does a great job, but that was a lot of people who did a lot of work to pull it off. It's pretty cool.
Performing arts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Lisa. That was great. Okay, anyone else? Oh, Carrie.
I attended the New Hampshire School Board Association, something or other. It was lovely. And all of the things that we wanted to go went, all of the things we didn't want to go, didn't go. So I think we're like pretty much 100%. The one thing I just wanted to mention was I don't know. there's a lot of conversation around some of the language and terminology. And for the one around open enrollment, they just went with NHSBA opposes state mandated open enrollment, period. And that's it. So kind of what we had talked about, that like the nuance of it should be this way and then not that way. So that was the only one that had big change from what we voted on.
Okay, thank you for attending, Carrie. Yes,
I
Pip.
guess I'll add one now too, since we're going around. I am very excited to announce that the facilities committee is going to meet for the first time in at least 5 years that I know of. So we don't have a specific date yet, but but we are coming together and we're hoping we will be meeting next week at the end of the week. So keep an eye out for that meeting schedule.
Thank you. We expect a full report.
Okay, I will bring this very gladly.
Okay, anybody else?
Just jinxed it.
All right, I just wanted to let everyone know the holiday parade is December 6th, Saturday, December 6th. And last year we participated. And several members thought maybe we should have a bigger participation, like maybe a flatbed truck or a pickup truck or something that we could decorate. And Nathan, are you expressing interest? You look like.
I am, Nancy, I'm sitting here quietly.
Can you get us a lot of e-scooters? Cause I think that would probably be.
I think you can rent them downtown.
Okay. So we'll have to put our heads together and see if we can come up with some ideas of what we could do, if we want to do it. We have our banner, as you all know, and we have participated in parades in the past, but if we'll talk about it. If anybody's interested, let me know. And maybe we can have a presence, more of a presence in the parade this year. It's a great parade. It goes on and on and on. There are a lot of floats, a lot of flatbed trucks, just a lot of groups marching. So it has a lot of community involvement. So we can all talk about that later, but keep that in the back of your head. Okay, anything else? We will move on to our consent agenda. We have minutes from the October 14th, 2025 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any changes, any comments? Okay, all in favor? Oh, we have to do roll call, sorry. Brian?
Genevieve Beckstead Muskie,
Yes.
Nancy Claiborne,
Yes.
Pip Clues,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Lee Hudson,
Lee?
You're on mute.
You self-mute or is you, did you mute him?
Okay.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport,
Yes.
motion passes.
I guess we had everybody vote for it, so.
Patty's gonna be, the one night she's not here.
Yeah.
No-
Okay.
No changes.
Okay, we're on to public, thank you, everyone. We're on to public comment session. Do we have anybody that would like to come forward and participate in the public comment session? No. Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to participate?
People, no hands up. We're good.
They're just attending, they don't want to talk. Okay, I declare the public comment session closed. Presentation, we have our Youth Wellness Coalition here with us tonight. We welcome you. They're going to make a presentation to us, and Amy, would you like to come forward? And there are 3 seats there. I don't know if others would like to come forward.
So I'm going to kick it off. I'm Larry McCullough, the Executive Director of Pine Tree Institute. Pine Tree is the sponsor of the Greater Portsmouth Youth Wellness Coalition. Really here to introduce Amy Michaels and Bill Stewart, who work directly with the coalition, but wanted to give you just a little bit of background that some people may not be familiar with. So going back to 2019, there was a conference here focused on adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Dr. Robert Anda, who did the original research, Laura Porter, who did a lot of the work, was here, worked with a group of people from Portsmouth and said, we should really do something here about this. That eventually became a program of training what we called master trainers, ACES master trainers. And there were 5 or 6 Portsmouth school teachers who became ACES master trainers. And we did training through professional development, through workshops. We did a few introductory year professional development on adverse childhood experiences, how it relates to social emotional learning, early childhood trauma. Very, very powerful, very well received. Out of those conversations grew a small group of people said, we'd really like to expand this, make it more formal. So what if we were to establish a coalition or a collaborative effort? And started exploring that, and eventually led to the ability to apply for and receive a grant from the Drug Free Communities Program, DFC program. Youth Coalition is now beginning its 3rd year of what potentially is a 10-year initiative. The DFC program it's a fantastic program that has demonstrated success all over the country. This is the first time in Seacoast, New Hampshire, that a DFC grant has been received and awarded. And in addition, there's now a STOP grant. I can never remember what it stands for.
Sobering truth on preventing.
Say it again.
Sobering truth on prevention.
Sobering Truth on Prevention, which is aimed at teenage alcohol prevention. And Amy and Megan will say a little bit more about that. But we have been very excited that this opportunity has come. There's been tremendous engagement that you will hear about from Amy and Megan. And we're very grateful to the schools and to the school board for supporting this initiative. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We're very happy to be here tonight. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So when we look at kind of people ask us what our why is. So our why as a group is to promote understanding and effective communication about substance use, particularly amongst youth. We're committed to supporting prevention efforts by emphasizing the importance of language, educating about how substance use can interfere with brain development, and recognize the interconnectedness of different substances. We celebrate the positive trend of more youth, more young people choosing to not use, and we aim to empower them and those who support them to make informed, healthy decisions. Additionally, we seek to address the critical connection between substance use and mental health, advocating for a holistic approach to prevention and well-being. Go to the next one. So I want to start first with this is some data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And although the collection happens in the schools because that's where kids gather, this is community data. This is not necessarily school specific and things like that. So the things that we hear out of this is gonna be youth in the whole community, not targeting specifically the school. We just know that that's a place where the kids are and can take this survey. If we could get them all to show up at the library on a Saturday, maybe we could do that. But so we appreciate the school board and administration supporting that still being taken within the schools. So what we have up there is, so this is some local data that came directly out of the Portsmouth Middle School. So this was their middle school data. So across the board, some really great stuff is the strong perception among students that their parents and friends would disapprove of the alcohol consumption and vape use. Over 95% believe their parents would consider it wrong, and over 92% think their friends would feel the same, that it would be wrong. So this is showing us that there is some positive peer and parental influence preventing youth substance, which is great. Despite these social disapprovals though, nearly 1/4 of the students report experiencing poor mental health most or all of the time in the past month. This underscores the importance of mental health support as part of a prevention effort. Bullying and electronic bullying are issues, with 44% of students experiencing bullying on school property and 27.6% facing electronic harassment. These experiences can impact mental health and overall well-being, highlighting the need for a comprehensive approach to youth health and safety. Overall, these statistics emphasize the importance of continued education, strong social supports, and prevention strategies that address not only substance use, but also mental health and bullying.
So the next slide is going to talk about some of the efforts that we've done within the schools and the community. We're overseeing the Youth to Youth Middle School Club, which is a prevention club. There's 5 to 6 members that attend regularly, so that's been really fun. We also support the Getting to Y program that's run by Mary at the high school, and they continue to look at that YRBS data and make suggestions and recommendations for things moving forward to improve the culture. We also look at parental and family engagement, and we really want to access and reach more parents because we know that, the school can't cover everything. They're not in the homes of everyone. So we want to make sure that we're providing that education to parents. So we partner with SAMHSA to do things like the Talk They Listen campaign, which also focuses on preventing drug and substance use. We're working with Lister Academy and doing mental health first aid training. So all of their staff and students were trained in mental health first aid last year by us, and that was really exciting. And we hope to continue doing that every year moving forward. And then finally, we're also supporting the B3 Youth Clinic, which is a youth basketball clinic at Godsling Meadows that's started by the Portsmouth High School students. So that's been really great, and we're working closely with them as well. It's been really fun.
So kind of looking at, what are we here for, what kind of the ask is really first involvement from somebody to join a coalition if you would like to, get our emails. A lot of people get our things and can help spread the word, can't make it to meetings. We know we meet on the third Wednesday in the morning, so that's difficult with a lot of people's work schedules. But really looking to engage more community members in the work that we're doing, especially in the elected positions that you guys are holding. And then engaging with the youth leadership opportunities. We have great B3 events all the time. We would love to see more people joining those and coming. And then promotion really is a big one for us. Really kind of, oh yeah, we know those people. Like they do good work. It's okay to talk to them, things like that, and through all of that, just kind of supporting each other and knowing again that you guys have access to the kids. We don't think you're responsible for making sure everything is okay with them either. So I want to make sure that that is conveyed to everybody, and everybody, if they're listening at home, also that the expectation when we see data like that isn't to be like, okay, now fix it. Like that's a community effort. And so that will involve all of us stepping up and helping with that. And through our coalition meetings, when we put 25 organizations that are serving youth in this area in one room, all of a sudden there's a lot of ideas that won't cost money to help students. And so that's really kind of our big one there. So kind of the key takeaways for our work is, yes, we are addressing youth substance and mental health and recognizing that they are hand in hand. We see them as the same. We're not separating one versus the other. And again, your support is crucial, and that working all together is how we know we can create safety for the youth of this community and a thriving community also with adults. And then very quickly, before we take any questions, also, we wanted to take this opportunity also to celebrate 2 of our Getting to Y youth members. So we have Mary here to talk about their cool achievements.
So I'm Mary Calhoun. I am the student assistance counselor at the high school. And part of what I do is we run the Getting to Y program. And that is a group of high school youth who have learned how to study the YRBS data and interpret it and make some choices about what they would like to see happen in our school based on their reflections. And so we've got Sage and Sienna. And I want to say, I'm honored to celebrate you 2. You're remarkable leaders. And you have demonstrated unparalleled commitment to the Getting to Y program and organizing things like our data retreat, which they run completely on their own. It's a full day retreat. We have
students come in who they organize activities and icebreakers and teach everybody how to interpret the YRBS data. And on top of it all, they are on our ice hockey team and are fantastic. And they've been able to juggle all of these responsibilities while also running the school wellness program and doing so many other things that I can't even list. They're so busy. So they both have been awarded, there were only a handful of these in the state of New Hampshire, and we have two right here. A scholarship from the Getting to Y program for all that they've done. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Because this is
Very.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
But thank you to the teachers.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you guys. Super important work.
Well, thank you for a very informative presentation. Are you finished? Am
Yeah,
I-
we're done. Yeah, we didn't know if you
But-
questions or anything, but okay.
So
Okay.
do we want to entertain questions from the board? Anyone have questions? Brian, Kerry?
I just had a couple questions on like the scope because it does sound like it's very centered around substance abuse and then the mental health. But I noticed you pointed out bullying and other things on the local data. Do you guys address any of that kind of stuff with the bullying, or is it just the mental or just the substance abuse or?
No, we can address anything on that, knowing that somebody who potentially is bullied, their mental health isn't gonna be great, and they may turn to a substance to kind of
Got it.
wash that out. And so everything is interconnected. So those numbers came off of the middle school youth risk behavior survey, which includes also things like, we know middle school kids are wearing their seatbelts, which is awesome. They're wearing helmets, which is awesome. So there's all sorts of other data located within that report. And so, yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Kerry?
Can you remind me of the like organizations that are participating? Cause I know I've been to like 2 meetings a minute ago,
Yeah.
like a couple years ago.
So there are some as part of our funding, there's some required people in the community need to be there. So someone from the school, you guys are gonna have to help me with this, religious sector, the PD is there, mental health providers, Safe Harbor Recovery Center is there,
Why?
the Y,
I'm sure
yep, New Hampshire Outright,
Youth serving organizations.
yeah.
youth Themselves, other school admin.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of people.
yeah,
It's about what, 25 to 30?
Yep.
Member organizations.
yeah.
12 required sectors spanning the whole community. But beyond that, another 15, 20 organizations that support.
Anyone else? Lisa?
I had one quick question. I was curious if you know when that data was collected at the middle school? Was that last year or was
Yes.
it 2 years ago?
It was last year,
Okay.
it was last school year.
Oh.
And it
No,
was,
that's-
and it was just 7th and 8th graders
Okay.
last year.
I just want to say, I love that you guys do this and share it with us. I mean, we had 2 years ago when a bunch of the students came in from PHS and I
Them.
know. you remember. But that feedback from students about what you need to feel that your mental health is more supported is really valuable information for us as the people who are supposed to help figure out, what services to provide and fund. So we really are grateful to you for doing the work and it really does have an impact. So thank you.
We'd love to come again.
Love that.
No, we'd love to have you again. Yeah.
Can you tell us exactly what you do at the high school to
Yeah,
work with this?
so basically, we initiated the program in our high school, and so that started with a leadership training from adults from Getting to Y program, where us and other students that are no longer with us, or like they're graduated. With the program at the time, started it. And so through that, then we trained other students at our school to analyze the data from our school. And then we've repeated this, and where students that were really interested in it, in the analysis in school, then join our leadership team. And we try to create change in the school throughout either presenting to the school board, or we've met with curriculum directors and we've met with the principal to try to advocate for change in the positive direction. Yeah, we're currently working on curriculum change, hopefully in the health curriculum, and then also planning another retreat with the data from last year because we haven't received it yet.
Yeah, so each year we typically have, we've been doing it since freshman year, we do like 2 trainings a year, cause 1 year we each get trained each year and then we do the training again. So like we've been training about like
3 times, yeah. And initially, our training was just with Portsmouth, like the state, like the ones from the leaders. But now it's like statewide, so our leadership trainings are with communities and other, and we have led-ish a leadership training now. Would help out with like facilitating, sharing what we have done in our school.
Getting to Wise initiative that comes out of Vermont. And so it made its way up, and the coalition funded that first year to bring it in. And so Vermont came up to train the students. And then New Hampshire was like, whoa, this is something we might want to get onto. And so now it's voluntary for the New Hampshire schools. But they are, like they said, they are ground level with it. They were trained by Vermont, and now they are training youth in the community. You guys don't need to go to another training. Don't let them do that. And so they really are, like, they are the ones who brought it to this community and really have helped also other communities look and be like, oh, wow, that's really an awesome program. And so I think you guys are in a couple videos I've seen it promoting and things like that. So they are being they're wonderful speakers. They've been asked at a conference once, just like, hey, we put you on the agenda. Do you mind getting up there and talking? And they do it.
A couple hundred people.
Yeah. And so they're amazing. So that's why we wanted to have this opportunity really to highlight them tonight also.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work. Now, what year are you, girl?
We're seniors.
We're really, oh my goodness. So,
Yeah, we training.
yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch of sophomores
Yeah,
good,
that
good.
have been like our leaders with us currently.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Any more questions from the board? Genevieve?
Do you involve student athletes? Because I know the athletes actually sign contracts. So I'm wondering if you motivate the athletes within the school to try and participate within your organization, because every student athlete signs a contract. They're not allowed, substance abuse and what have you.
It's actually something we're gonna try and start doing, is life of an athlete, like, we're gonna look into life of an athlete and see if that's something that we could bring.
It's bigger numbers.
But they're both hockey players.
Yeah. No, exactly.
You didn't see hockey players.
And we try to reach as many different, like during our recruiting for our general trainings, we try to reach as many different pools of students as possible because we want an unbiased lens when looking over the data. Even though like maybe our leadership team is more niche, we want everyone's input on our data.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for a
Thank you very
fabulous.
much.
We appreciate all of you coming out, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts that you do for our school and our community, and what would we do without you? Thank you all very, very much. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the year.
There you Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Now we move on to now see with the high school rank GPA updates.
Welcome, everybody. Hello, the team is here.
I was gonna say, just a reminder for the board, so we last meeting gave you the intended direction of the high school team around where we want to go in relation to GPA and ranking. So we shared that with you at a previous meeting, and now I promised we'd bring the team back for any questions to have some dialogue with the board around that particular proposal.
Yeah, so I just want to, Steve Kinosi, principal, I want to introduce the team as well. Jackie Chisholm, who is our assistant principal of curriculum instruction, and Britt Lind, who is our college counselor and resident guru and all things. Yeah, so I just wanted to open this up. This is definitely not a formal presentation, more of a dialogue for us to have and talk and share. And we appreciate this idea for this time to take this healthy dialogue, especially on this topic around moving away from an old rank system to the Latin system, the cum laude system. And I just wanted to start with the goal is simple. And it's a goal we've stuck to for a long time now, is to celebrate the hard work of all of our students. And that is the core of all of this, these discussions, these changes, and to focus on real learning, real growth, and a lot less on competition. So with that, just kind of jump in.
Do you guys want to give just, and people had the material before, but you want to give the quick overview of where we were? So I know you broadly said from where we were to now, the Latin system, just give people a quick overview.
Sure.
Yeah, so this has kind of been a work in progress for like 7 years. So when I first started at Portsmouth, we had just moved to the 10-point scale. We had redone how our weighted GPA was, so it was no longer done with quality points and was done as a straight average of all the students' grades, with a weight being given to certain classes. So advanced placement, honors, dual enrollment. And at the time, we still had another level in there, which has since been phased out. So that was kind of like step one, is making things a little bit more clean in terms of the curriculum piece with that. So we started talking about the rank piece and how colleges were using it and how it was affecting our students, both in choices that they were making for their classes, like choosing to take certain classes to have a certain grade point average for rank versus taking classes that would really help them with their future, or that they just wanted to take because they really like art or they really like theater or some of these other pieces. And so we started kind of looking at that, and we started talking to colleges, and we kind of started talking to some of the kids. It's a common thing I get interviewed about from the paperclip every single year. So it's definitely something that the students have been talking about also. And it's also come up a lot with the 306s, because this is going to, we were talking about today, drastically change like how credits are earned at schools and what they're counted for and how they are represented on a transcript. And so now is kind of the time, we feel like, and we're not the only ones looking at this. So I was on the director meeting for school counselors in New Hampshire last Friday, and other schools are also talking about this. So Pembroke's talking about moving to a cum laude system. Other schools are getting rid of allowing outside credits to count within their GPA and rank system. So schools are starting to have this discussion. So I think we're probably going to be in good company with this over the next couple of years also. But in terms of the college admission piece, I started talking to a lot of the college reps about this a few years ago. We have about 125 reps come in every fall. So I talk to them, most of them when they're in the school, if I can. We also have a college fair every spring that has usually around 125 reps at it. So it's information that we've been able to start that dialogue with the schools as well. And New England is one of the only areas in the country that still ranks high school students. Like, there's a lot of data out there and stuff that says that it is a detriment to their mental health, because it creates this environment of competition within kids. And we see it in our top 10 right now. And so we're really looking to be able to celebrate more of our students and the good work that they're doing, instead of a really finite number who maybe made choices based off of just getting this accolade instead of what was maybe best for them in their future and what they want to do, what makes them happy. So I think that's where it kind of started and where we've come from.
Yeah, and in our research, this idea that the 306 laws that are getting into place next year will significantly change the high school experience for kids, both the teaching and the learning.
And our job is to stay ahead of that and to be ready and to respond to the needs of the kids and the community. But in our early research, Oyster River, Hanover High, Bow High School, and Souhegan are all just a few schools that are already have moved on outside of rank. And that just framed some of our, who we were talking to, what we were learning as we were doing it, so.
And just to speak to a little bit of the timeline, Bert says it's been in the
Mm-hmm.
process for a long time, but we've spent probably the last year working closely at the high school with our department head team, showing them drafts of these ideas. We shared it with our staff last month, just as we're in the drafting process, putting the communication out there. And then we have plans moving forward to share with our academic standards committee, which is our student teacher academic group. Steve shared it this weekend or talked this weekend with the.
Nathan shared this weekend and,
Yeah.
and we addressed it with the student senate this Saturday at our Saturday meeting. So that was great.
So that's like one piece of our communication process in phase.
And that included here to talk with the board and have that time and so we were excited.
Would you like to take some questions now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I see Pip, I see Brian. We'll start with them.
I was on the school safety and wellness committee during the strategic planning process, and one of the things we heard repeatedly from the student side was there's too much pressure on us. We're super stressed out there, that it's just a lot and that we needed to make changes in that direction. So I see this as one of those changes that really will shift things in terms of competition level and all the other reasons you guys elaborated. What are the downsides to it? Do you foresee any, or do you foresee any negative responses, particularly from students? I guess that's my biggest concern.
I think it's more perception than it is reality in terms of what the downside is. I think changing to a new system, and we were talking about this today, the difference, like just now talking about like dual enrollment versus AP versus where we were the first year, like change is hard. And because people are so ingrained in a system that used to be how it worked, and times have changed and we have to change with it. And so I think there's going to be a little bit of pushback just because people don't understand necessarily. So that's something that we're combating in terms of how we communicate with the parents and how we communicate with the students, and doing this thoughtfully so that we're doing it starting with a class that hasn't been affected by it. So we're starting with the freshman class who's unleveled, like all of their classes are unleveled. So if we can start to have this conversation with them before the course selection process happens, then some of those decisions are a little bit different in terms of what they're choosing to take for classes and stuff. And I think in the long run, and this also happened with the dual enrollment versus AP, we'll have data that shows this. Like, I think the college admissions piece is a big piece to it, because I think that there's a lot of people that think that kids will be at a disadvantage for scholarships or for admission pieces, but that data is not there. Like, I started talking to reps, and I do have a small amount, but I'm still getting data from college reps. I have a survey out that kind of asks some specific questions. But one of the questions was, are students who don't come from high schools that don't rank at a disadvantage for scholarship money? And 100% said no. So like, I think there's some pieces like that that we may hopefully be able to start showing that like this won't be like to the detriment of students.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Brian?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around like the mechanics of all this. So there previously before, did you put out GPAs that were scaled before?
Yeah.
That's what ended up on like your transcripts. And then now it won't be weighted, right?
So,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's what I'm asking.
yeah, the
GPA from
nuances, yeah.
rank, yeah.
It is difficult. Thank you for that question, because it is
So
a
in the
nuance.
past, it was based off of quality points. When we changed to the 10-point scale, they changed to a straight average, and the GPA association is just different for honors AP dual enrollment classes. So currently, the way the system works, that will continue to work for sophomores, juniors, and seniors, is they're given a weighted GPA at the end of their first semester of their junior year. We only update for weighted GPA and rank starting then. So they don't get that information until then, and it's used so that they have some information, more so the weighted GPA, in the college application process when they start looking at schools. With all of that being said, the weighted GPA piece is something that we will keep, but it will be used internally for them to start using it with the admissions process, because a lot of the schools do post a weighted GPA is what their average is. The piece that we're still trying to work out, and we have some time to do that, is
which classes will go into that weighted system. So one of the other questions that's on the survey I have out to the colleges is, do they only weight core academic classes? Does that include international language? Are they including every single class that's weighted? So the CTE classes that are dual enrollment, do those go into their weighted GPA? So that will purely be an internal posting on Naviance that the kids can see still in the middle of their junior year to start helping with the application process so they can align themselves with what the averages are for schools and be able to look at that. But it won't be something that's posted externally for colleges because most colleges recalculate on their own scale anyway.
Which if I may too, it's your weighted GPA isn't on, like my official school transcript doesn't have my weighted GPA, it's my unweighted.
It does. So the one that you see on Infinite Campus. So there's 2 transcripts currently. The one that the kids see only has their unweighted GPA because we don't want it to be this like constant thing that they're clicking on Infinite Campus to see like what their updated weighted GPA is. And so.
I just want you to know Delaney's been batting 1,000 for. Yeah. Only when we bring you in, only we bring Lynn, who's batting 1,000 in her own right, so.
But there's a custom GPA that goes out to the colleges that has the level of every class that you've taken as well as your weighted GPA and rank currently is how it works.
Okay, so the difference is you're not going to do it in freshman and sophomore year then?
We don't right now.
That
anyway.
doesn't, yeah, that's not changing.
That doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't currently, yeah.
So like
Well,
currently.
Classes run out, yeah.
They can take an honors level or dual enrollment class sophomore year, so eventually it's counted into their weighted GPA and rank when they see it for the first time in their junior year. But running the new system with the current freshmen, it would be, they wouldn't get a weighted GPA, same thing until junior year, but it would not include rank and it would only be whatever we decide in terms of what the internal weighted GPA would be for college admissions. It
And
wouldn't-
then the cum laude system's not based off the weighted.
No, it's unweighted.
Okay, and then there's still rank though, right? Or not rank?
No.
Goal
So-
is not to have rank.
So
Currently,
no
yes.
rank at all.
Nope.
And so
Celebrating
you have-
students through the Latin system.
Okay,
Magna
so will you
cum laude.
have a valedictorian then? Interesting.
Not by definition, no.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
But the idea of celebrating a student with their speech, like what the graduation ceremony is about, that wouldn't go away.
Yeah, some of the best speeches are there.
Nathan Delaney, come on.
Well, he has a president's speech.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, he's already got
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so it's still, again, it's about this goal of celebrating more kids for the real work that happens throughout the.
No,
4
I'm
years.
just trying to understand. like,
Yeah, so no designation of valedictorian.
Those 2 speeches right now, the Valensal would not the Valensal, but having 2 student speeches would stay. We haven't determined like what that would look like because we currently already have the Bartlett speaking contest and they speak at graduation.
Those kids are
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, so it would be something probably similar to that where kids can apply to, but we haven't worked out what that would look like, but there would still be 2 student speakers for those.
And would there be a rank calculated for not even for colleges? Gone.
And just fundamentally, this is the best analogy, I think, for non-educators is our GPA with weighted is kind of made up, right? We make it up to show a distinction. All colleges calculate against a 4.0. So we could make it 7.9, we could make it 13.2, like it's really not a thing.
You take an honors class, we give you double.
Yes, like so
It's like,
this is
well,
made
we
up by
do whatever we
schools,
want, you know.
but the colleges have to reduce everything to a 4.0. So, and then to Brittany's point, this idea of, well, what classes? Is it core academic, like required? Is it all the electives? There's a lot of really important programs in our school that are not required, right? Our entire CTE program, our entire, performing arts. These are art majors, right? Like these are kids who commit to something robust. So we're looking at making sure all kids are celebrated for the work they do in their passion places too, so.
So really the difference is the ranking. Okay.
Yeah, it's really just that.
Because there was a lot of stuff in there and I wasn't quite sure.
It's very hard to,
What the
because, and
differences really
wait till,
were.
if you ask Brittany to start doing calculations with you, then.
Even Nick, no.
It gets really complicated. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a question. And then Lisa,
And then Carrie.
and then Carrie. Lee?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess one of my questions is, from a college's perspective, my understanding is that GPA and I'll say, course rigor matters. still. So how does that reduce some of the stress from maintaining a GPA, or at least a high GPA, that kids experience already? That's still a little confusing to me.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say the stress isn't still gonna be there for some kids, because I mean, the college admissions process is daunting, and that is a piece to it. But I think the hope is that if a student wants to be an art major, that they're not gonna worry about taking dual enrollment Calc 2, because they're probably not gonna need it. And those art schools that they're applying to are really gonna worry more about their portfolio. And so they're gonna take more art classes. Whereas, so like that rank piece of things, if that's a factor that they're concerned about, because if they take that art class and it doesn't count as high in their GPA, so their rank is being affected, then that won't be a factor anymore. So is it gonna alleviate all the stress? No. But the hope is that it will help kids to be able to take classes a little bit more in line with what their future pathway is, or to take classes that they're experimenting because they don't know what their future pathway is, and not be like so concerned that they have to go online to VUACs and take honor civics because they need that extra quality point, like to be able to go towards their extra weighted GPA. And that is, especially with the 306 is coming up, because it kind of opens up a lot of things for kids to take a lot of classes and things in other places. We're already seeing a lot of that, kids taking VLOCs and stuff like that, in addition to their classes at Portsmouth High School, because they want the honors designation and stuff that we don't offer.
And I very much appreciate the positive frame about what we want to do, but I think annually, or almost annually since I've been here, some story has trickled up to me about what classes counted for what, and we're down to minuscule points about who's gonna be number 2 and who's gonna be number 3.
And how many, like quite literally hundreds and thousands between people.
And it's and it's lots of lots of VLAX conversation I've had over the years about what should and shouldn't count as part of that process. So I know that is an ongoing annual thing, and it does that pursuit of being, I think Lee was talking about the stress, that we want the stress to be on rigor of learning.
The course itself.
And the course itself, not on how do I game the system against 9 other of my classmates to try to get those 10 slots. And that, I think, I've heard enough anecdotal evidence about the kind of the choices that are not learning-based choices that students are making as a result of the pursuit of being in one of these, and 10's a random number. So we have this random number that 10's important, and now
Actually, the last couple of years, it hasn't been 10 because the kids have been so close
How many
in terms of
grades do we have to
like we did like TOEFL one year,
Right.
like, cause I was like, I can't like cut off a kid based off of that minute of a like.
So this doesn't remove the fact that to get into competitive colleges, they need to take
Yes.
very rigorous
Right.
courses.
Yes.
They need to do very well in those rigorous courses. It just removes this other level of
Competition.
of outcomes that are just not pro kid outcomes in the
And they're not quite authentic in some ways.
And
too, right?
and
Like
there's definitely, I think we've definitely dealt with, on an annual basis, a couple of, to what extent is this an authentic?
That's right. To Lee's point, I think, and Nathan presented it to students at Senate meeting this Saturday morning at 9 a.m.
I'll try.
Yeah.
Do you
And
ever sleep?
And it was a really thoughtful approach, because and I think to this idea that what could we do? What one thing could we do as a team to change this conversation, to change this experience? And if it's rank, let's start there. Because the way Nathan presented it was, let's just take that off our table so that we can just talk about taking classes we want, classes we need, and it was really thoughtful, and the kids are grappling with it, and our academic standards, staff and students will grapple with it again. But I think that was a really thoughtful way to present it, to say, this is what we can do, this one thing. And it won't have a negative. There is no down, just perception like that. That will change with this 9th grade class, right? In 3 years, it won't be the same reality. So. Yeah.
Lisa was next, and then Kerry.
Oh, well, I love the idea. Oh, we'll go here. Go ahead.
No, I want you to go. I just want after Carrie.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, I didn't see.
No, you're okay.
Well, I love the idea of this, because I think anything you can do to take the stress off of students so that they are studying what they want to study is fantastic. I'm curious about a couple of pieces that you mentioned where I may just not understand what you mean, but with the 306s that you're referencing, you mean just because students might do some of their credits not as a class at the high school, and then that would change whether or not you use it in the Latin system, or you're not gonna put them on the transcript, or what are you saying about that? I just wanna understand
Yeah.
what you mean, because I feel like that is gonna be a big
The
change.
student experience is going to change, right?
A lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Knows how.
broad, why, yeah,
They have
exactly,
5 other courses outside of, and which they can right now,
Yeah.
but like,
but at
the
a very
hope is-
different level.
yes,
Right now, those go on the transcript.
and they still will.
Yes.
Okay, so what you're saying is that they wouldn't.
Right now, they count in a weighted GPA and rank, because we
Oh,
include
okay, so
everything that
Yeah.
get
Now I'm
paid.
learning things.
Yeah,
Okay.
in their weighted GPA and rank. So,
Gotcha. So they would show up on the transcript, but they wouldn't, okay.
They're just gonna count like in their unweighted GPAs, like this is a class that we took, or depending on what it is, if it's pass fail, it doesn't, it's not
Gotcha.
included in anything.
And then are you changing it up how you set the unweighted GPA? Because I will say, as somebody who spent way too much time in the Common App with a senior this week, this whole, well, what is our GPA out of and what does it mean and how do we guess is just baffling. I know you
Yes.
can't make it comply with every college, but I'm just curious if you're thinking about something other than like a 5 point something or.
We talked about
I
that,
don't know. I'm just
and that is a
curious.
possible conversation for down.
Sorry.
Yes.
Baby steps,
Yeah.
maybe like
Like,
slow
I
and
don't know what
steady.
it means.
Yeah, yeah, so currently we run a 4.3 system, which is also kind of odd because most colleges run a 4 and don't give weight to an A+. So it's a really odd system, but then we go one step further and our weighted GPA is a 5.3 because we give 1 full credit point or like GPA association on the weighted scale above. So that the weighted piece is still in conversation and the GPA piece is a possible conversation for down the road, definitely, but the rank is kind of a separate piece to that right now.
And then I'm curious, so you spoke to the student senate. Have you spoken to a broader population of students about
No,
this?
we had a timeline,
Okay,
so department heads, staff, board, right, students by virtue of the Senate crew, the council.
okay.
And then the academic standards, which is the body that represents for the academic decisions.
Which students are on.
Yeah, so yeah, we're on track for our plan of dissemination and engagement and feedback.
Okay, Carrie? I'm gonna go on a little bit of an aside here, but it's gonna connect, I swear. So I was a kid at Sohegan, so very much like the, coalition, not ranking, and now I'm a college professor and I've been teaching since the last time I taught in-person undergrad was pre-COVID. Been teaching graduate, now I'm back with sophomores.
Oh, lucky, yeah.
Loving life. It's a different world. And even in those like 6 years, because I teach nursing, and so I get like, what do we need to know for the test? Where's our study guide? Where's our this? Where's our and it's like all exam focused. And finally, I'm just like, guys, like I can't control the number of meds you need to know in the world. Like this is about nursing. And so it's a really hard shift, and we've found it harder and harder to shift them from this like I must get an A on everything. I must be the top. I must be the top. And it's like great nurses get C's and terrible nurses get A's. And like we're just so anyway, I really appreciate this whole conversation because of what we've noticed at the college level. And I think too, we have classes of 120 now, but we'll be like, we take in 120 nursing students. We want 120 to graduate. Like we are not going to senior year be like, only 50% of you get to go. And so it's just this makes me so much more informed about the experience that I'm seeing on the college side. But I'm just curious about, because this is just my commentary, but was there a COVID related change that somehow, because I feel like
In everything we do?
my editorial opinion is that the expectation of information being spoon fed and this is going to be on the exam, make sure you remember it for the exam, and what is being asked for is baffling to me. That wouldn't have been asked for 6 years ago. So I'm just sorry, I know I'm going off scope, but
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I noticed, I was in a different school and managing the COVID stuff. Portsmouth High School absolutely sticks to the human experience a lot in that sense. We're not immune to this shift and transition but I think there is still a lot of good kind of human connection, teaching and learning that happens. And this move fits with that, like the department heads said so, the faculty said so. So I think we're in a good space to kind of tap into that, what we know is human learning, like the relationships, the connections. So that's our goal. Yeah.
I feel like classroom teachers are always meeting with them, talking about fighting the urge for kids, the grade driven urge and the test driven urge, and more like take a risk with your learning and try something different. Like that is a constant struggle in the classroom.
Absolutely, in college, the same trend where it's like, no, I need to know what gen ed I can get an A in. And it's like, go take drawing. I heard they grade really hard. Go take, like it's like just like these things where you're like, you're here. Like we can, so I the fact that people are taking it based on what the points can be and like totally separate from their passion and interest. And I feel really grateful around like being able to do philosophy seminar and doing like all these weird classes I did in high school that kind of helped that. So anyway, lots of aside, but thank you for indulging me.
Thank you, Carrie. Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, you guys just took the words right out of my mouth in the best way, because I think the focus on Saturday was shifting from this grade focused, I need to get an A, to the experience. And what was really cool for me to hear was from the teachers saying at the high school, I have seen a trend over the past 10 to 15 years of kids not like, and I don't want to classify it as like, you're not going towards the experience, because you can somewhat do both at the same time. But a hyper focus on getting a higher letter grade and nowhere close to the amount of wanting the experience in the classroom. So I found that really interesting in this whole process to learn from a lot of teachers who it was resounding, like I have seen a very large trend and shift. So just to add on to all that, I mean, I agree with everything that's saying.
I'm sorry, we have to welcome our SAU 50 representative. I thought you were part of that group. What is your name?
Morgan.
Jessica Morgan?
Yes, I'm with Newington.
Newington.
Yes.
Well, welcome, Jessica. We're happy you're here tonight.
This all feels so foreign to me. I have younger kids. I grew up fighting for a high GPA and class rank and all that stuff. And it's just, I love the idea of all this, but how does this work for college applications? Are they weighing testing higher? Like how do they separate all their applicants?
Yeah.
If class rank is not an option anymore.
So it kind of depends on the school, but generally speaking, they're gonna tell you they do a holistic review. So they're gonna look at they're gonna recalculate the GPA based on their own scale so they can more accurately compare you to other students from different high schools. But then they're gonna look at the classes that you took versus the classes that were offered at the high school that you went to. So like on our school profile, which goes with every college application, there's a link that shows like what our highest level classes are and every class listed off and everything, as well as like our GPA scale and all of that information. But that is kind of one of the pieces. The application essay is a huge piece now. So colleges, I think, have been more thoughtful, especially since COVID, I think a little bit about really looking at like the whole student, because they want kids who are going to be successful on their campus. And sometimes the kids that get a straight A or number one in the class, like they may not be successful on a campus, and that's life. Like stuff happens and that's okay. So they're looking at everything. They're looking at like the essay and what it is that you're trying to tell them about you, your activities, your letters of recommendation. Some schools have gone back to requiring SAT scores. Florida, for whatever reason, really likes them. But yeah, Florida's gone back, the state has required it. So, but they're the only place that has like primarily done that. There's a couple other school pockets here and there, but that piece is also kind of in flux because most of the schools say about 50% of students don't submit their test scores. They're test optional. I was at a thing with UNH today. They said only 20% of their students last year submitted SAT scores. So
Different
they
day.
have completely changed their, like, how they're looking at applications. And it's not just the rank piece, it's really like how the admissions process has transformed, so.
Thank you.
Right.
So I'm gonna continue going off topic with some of the things that are in here, because to me, they're very interesting things and they affect me. I mean, I have my daughters just started high school as well, and so I think a lot about this stuff. But one of the things I learned early in my career was when I started to manage people, I was starting to interview and I was trying to look at, you know, all their GPAs in college, and one of the things that I noticed, and my mentor at the time had told me, he's like, you're gonna see some trends where kids that have really good grades can't actually problem solve. And I'm in engineering, and engineering is, you know, people think logical, but there's a creative piece when you build something new, right? So that means you have to use all these tools. It's not like somebody gives you a rote thing, you have to memorize it. And the reality is like engineers now have AI tools, they have like Google, they have tons of resources, but they have to put together really complex things. So you don't have to memorize hardly anything if you don't want to, but it's really about like, how do I use all the tools in front of me to make something? And it's funny because especially foreign students who do exceedingly well on tests are terrible at engineering for that exact reason, because they really want you to give them, you know, every little detail of a problem versus like, listen, this is, you know, doesn't work like this. So I'm glad to hear that discussion being talked about, because it's really about, it's learning how to use the tools around you. It's not like grade focused thing. It's like, how do you learn? And when I interview, I want to see their problem solving skills. I don't care if they know the exact formula or whatever. I'm like, how are they thinking about the problem and what creatively can they do to figure out how to get to a solution? So I don't know how we incorporate that, because that's a very lofty, you know, I don't know how you even quantify that for teaching. I'm not a teacher, just so you guys, I have no idea.
We've made changes, but yeah.
But that's the way I think about it, you know, and engineering now it's AI, it's all of these wonderful tools, but you know, you get a new kid that especially has no idea and they're trying to use AI, they can run amok and they have no idea, and they're like trying to rely on the tools and it's a complete mess. When you get a really person that knows how to navigate that, it can be a really powerful tool. Like I picture it as a calculator, a really powerful calculator. So anyways, I just wanted to say that because I do think the focus on grades it's not important in the real world when it comes down to problem solving.
And Nate can attest to this because we've had this conversation. One of the things that I talk to a lot of the students about in the junior meetings is not getting so caught up in like the name of a school, but the experience that they can get out of it. So we have a lot of discussions about like, you can go to Harvard and get straight A's, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get a better job or be better off afterwards than the kid that went to UNH and did okay, but did 3 internships and can problem solve and do all of these things. So we've been working a lot over the last couple of years to also get kids, and Nicole Bellabana has been great with this, internships and making headways in the community to be able to get kids out and get real world experience in high school. The CTE program is a big piece to that too. So I always go back. My dad actually is an engineer also and owns an engineering firm in New Hampshire, and they have over 50 employees, 4 offices in New York and New Hampshire. And he jokes that him and the president of the company have the worst transcripts out of anybody in his company. So it is a lot about like your personality, like what you can do with it, who you can connect with, how you can work. And that is something that like we have been trying to incorporate in.
Yeah, I just want to add really quickly to that, Brian, because I agree 100%. And these changes, like the honors DE move, have come with course changes, right? So Jackie can talk about the classes we've changed, like created to make sure that we have kids wrestling with really complex problems.
I was just gonna add, the Portrait of a Graduate and all of those skills anytime someone pitches a new class now, we ask, how are you incorporating those skills into your course?
Yeah.
So our new math courses, our new global leadership course is
Oh,
way different now. It's all inquiry based. It's all
Yeah.
design thinking. It's not, can you memorize this and then spit it out next week? It's applying those skills, which are so valuable, and that's where kids are gonna find success in their future.
And I was just gonna say, so, and that translates not just a new course development, but it also forces us to talk a lot about pedagogy and what is in existing courses with existing topics, how are we reconceptualizing pedagogy to create the type of people you're talking about? And so that means we can't, a lot of the courses that we've had for, the classics courses, we can't teach them the same way we were teaching them 20 years ago. We should not be. And so then how are we helping staff redevelop those types of courses in a different way? And that's challenging. That can be hard.
Lisa, Lee has something too? Okay.
No,
Lee.
I just wanted to say thank you for actually bringing that up, Brian. And mostly because, creative thinking is something that I think was lacking when kids were so focused on grades and I'll say rote repeat in terms of trying to actually achieve that, that grade point average. I think that and I loved what you said about AI as well. But the way that you actually leverage AI, you can actually teach a methodology that helps actually teach kids to be creative thinkers. It can actually help train kids to be creative thinkers if you use it appropriately. And so, love to hear you guys talking about that as opposed to how do I make sure that I get a high GPA so I can get into Harvard? Because you're absolutely right. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
You, Lee. I think we have Lisa.
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, I mean, I like the shift in emphasis away from the ranking also, just because like I have had every year the conversation of sign up for the extra art class, like don't drop choir, even if it means you can't have this thing. And, I've got a student who loves a whole bunch of subjects and is gonna study art and who the hell knows what else. And you know what? The art schools like that they've taken like this biotech class and they like that they've done all these different things. So I feel like giving kids the space to not be in the room with all the other kids going like, oh, well, you're like 2/1000 of a decimal. Sounds as a parent of a senior, like really
In
awesome.
that biotech class, that is happening.
That class, like, I know, like every day.
Yeah, the day I post the weighted GPA as a junior year, it's the worst day of the school year for me. Cause kids come running down like, what's my weighted GPA? What rank am I? Yes.
we're gonna take that one little piece away
Yes.
so we can focus on the other things.
So you feel this will be implemented with the current freshman class? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's you, Brian, with your twins.
It's not me. I'm not. He's free.
Freshman.
But I do think communicating this to parents is gonna be tricky because
Oh, yeah.
there's a,
Yeah,
there's
so,
perception.
yeah, just address that because we spent a lot of time behind the scenes. So we actually have side-by-side comparison charts. So if you remember what we did for the APDE, the clarity we brought, that's what we're, approaching for this next tier of communication. So that there's resources constantly, and that's something we've been working on.
Yeah, we're gonna do a webinar in November. I was waiting until after
Yeah,
this.
we
as long
wanted
as
to,
there was
have all the conversations.
support for it. But we're gonna be setting up a Zoom webinar with some college reps, the rep from Granite Advance. So, because I feel like hearing it from some of the colleges that our kids most often apply to is more impactful to parents that are worried about how this is gonna influence their kids than me talking to them about it. So we're gonna set that up for late November, early December. And then we have a parent square already with like all the information and the side by side to go out, so.
Well, thank you very much. Does anyone else have? Carrie?
I've always, and I do this with, and advocate for this on the college side too, but the idea that we have certain opportunities for the many opportunities for the highest performers and they get to do all the things, is like, I really want there to be like a opportunity if your GPA is 2 to 3 and like, here's this whatever experiential learning part, like something. And and I see that I think more in like Portsmouth than I like than growing up, but like this idea that like we, I don't know, we kick people out of things or we do like their performance falls. I don't know. It's just like a broad statement, but and
It's
I'm
important because we intentionally redesigned the ninth grade social studies course, the global leadership course, for that, required for all ninth grade students. And it's hands-on, design thinking, global challenges, water, air, the future of food,
Yeah.
like real problems looking globally and locally. And that was by design, as you said, not saved for the senior high flyers. All ninth graders get to get their hands on complex problems.
We've
So that was
also-
an intention.
And we've also looked for other ways to be able to recognize other students. So we came up with a new award, the Clipper Awards last year. So there's a couple of students from every grade, and that is like the school votes on, the teachers all get say they vote on it and everything. And it's thinking outside the box, like kids who won't normally necessarily get recognized for all of this other stuff, but are like some very solid contributors to our school community. I also worked with the trustees last year to change the rules for the Haven medals to include CTE, because a lot of those kids were being cut off because they weren't taking the career techno. Haven medals is a award that's given out at the end of the year for seniors, and they do it by department. They're certain qualifications or excellence in English, excellence and CTE didn't have one. And a lot of those students, because they choose to take the full 2-year CTE program, sometimes were left out of other ones because they didn't meet the criteria because they took the 2-year CTE program. So we have started doing that also. So we're looking for other ways additionally to be able to recognize a variety of different learners at the school too.
Brian.
Just to dovetail on what she said, like, one of my really good friends is a multimillionaire and he started a pressure washing business. Didn't go to college. He makes billions a year, you know, and it's funny because he tried to drag me into that business. Some of all those credit cards and very successful. But I just read an article that the next millionaires are gonna be plumbers and electricians. So owning those kinds of businesses and preparing our kids to like, it's not, you know, learning a trade, but also learning how to be a leader. You don't have to have a 4.0 to be a leader. In fact, a lot of those guys are not great leaders. No, I'm not saying you're, I know, you're great.
Maybe I don't have a 4.0. I actually don't have a 4.0.
But my point is that there needs to be those opportunities for those kids too, because believe it or not, a lot of those kids are gonna be leaders.
Absolutely.
And make a lot of money and be very successful, so.
Thank you, Brian. Genevieve.
It's global leadership. My daughter's freshman at the school, and it actually is her favorite class. So she
There
is
you go.
loving it. Yeah.
Great
so-
design.
Well, the teachers that you have teaching it too, oh my God, they were like practically doing cartwheels on Parents' Night just to like, because they're so excited about what they're teaching.
It was a year and a half.
And it
Work.
comes across to the kids too. So because it's definitely something, and she's very happy to have her A right now.
Great little
The
wrap it
win-win.
there, yeah. No, thank you for that, Tim. Great to hear.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you. Forth and get rid of class rank.
Shall be so.
Blessing.
Guys.
Thank you for
Thank
interesting
you.
and thorough presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Amy's staying. Nancy, Amy is staying. She took your invitation.
55 minutes.
Thanks very much. Okay, we'll go now to the superintendent's report. The first item is the budget schedule.
Yep, so we have the proposed budget schedule for you. We are as usual, we got a couple of different things we're trying to navigate. Of course, election stuff, and then reorganization meeting. And then also in terms of the sequencing of when our vacation hits. The city is definitely looking for us to have our process. And then, you know, I'm sure it'll be an uninterrupted process this year, but that completed before we head off for February vacation. So this tries to squeeze that in between those two things, but this version of things would require that same night as the organizational meeting, we would go right into the initial presentation of like, here's the, you know, here's the big picture of what's in the budget. Here are the things that there are the additional asks, here are the things, the strains, all that stuff, and here's your binder and here's how you understand it. That would all happen the same night as the reorganizational meeting. So I know, I have faith that that would be the one outside of the reorg stuff, that would be the one agenda item that night. I will, if you recall, that's usually not a lot, we're not doing a lot of questioning that night because you haven't got it yet. So you're just receiving it. Here's your entree into it. So my hope is that folks will find that acceptable, because otherwise we'll really condense the schedule otherwise, most likely.
Welcome to the school board. Here's the budget.
I have one question about the timeline.
Yeah.
Would we have the ability on the 6th, if we do it that way, to put in requests that are possible to meet by the 13th or the 20th? If we're, like, if your budget, for example, proposes adding
Yeah.
substantial things or changing things or removing things substantially, I think we'd want to be in a position to say we'd like to hear from the people in the district who would be playing key roles in whatever those things are.
Yeah.
So would we have time baked into that process with that calendar to say on the 6th, we want to start using our time on the 13th to hear from those people, because it's not a lot of notice. That's my only wondering about
Yeah,
that.
so I would say, like, in terms of preset stuff, and I feel like we were ready to jump in, but I was gonna say on preset, I assume that, for example, based on our last year, I would assume you're gonna wanna do a dive on special education costs independent of what is I would assume the 13th, and a piece of that could be special education right out of the gate, kind of, no matter what. It's gonna be a story. It's gonna be part of what city council is gonna be looking to talk about at some point, I'm guessing. So that's there. We can also, to whatever extent we can, I don't know how much previewing we're gonna be in a position to do pre-holiday vacation, probably not. And so, not like formalized preview, but even just signaling like these are areas that we think might.
I mean, we can before Christmas.
Before Christmas, we might be able to do a little bit of like, these are some of the elements we think we see coming.
At a December 9th meeting, you mean?
And that's the challenge.
You know,
We are meeting with, we start conversations. Yeah, right. We are starting conversations with cost center folks next week. And so then we're gonna go through our goal is to go through meeting with all those folks, coming back together with the core leadership team to talk again, going back out. So there's gonna be some iterative process for us. I'm hoping that will put us in a position to be able to signal in advance of a return in January that, like, here are some things that are coming. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I don't want to overpromise.
No, I mean, definitely special will be one of them. The other one will probably be facilities, because that's gonna be front and center for the next couple of years, between playgrounds and school renovations and things like that. So I'm sure Kenny would be in that mix. And last year, I think I remember the 3rd was kind of our wild card we put out there, was whoever you guys wanted. Wanted to on the third one, or 4th for that matter. Because we actually have one extra meeting.
I think some of the stuff will not be a surprise. There'll be elements of things in the strategic plan that that are out there, that may or may not have gotten, covered last year, that we're bringing back.
And I think that maybe having somebody for each of the strategic plan areas in some capacity would probably be quite valuable.
Yeah.
And I feel like last cycle, we didn't really hear very much in particular about sort of student wellness and mental health, because we went into the deep dive in special ed.
Yeah.
So that piece, we didn't have as much.
I could see,
funding.
so independent of like what ends up happening with up and down type stuff. I mean, I definitely feel like each of those, we have 3 pillars of strategic planning. I feel like each of those, we should have a meeting that's really devoted to like, okay, here's what we're doing in area 1 that is connected to budget requests. Here's what we're doing in area 2, 3. That makes a lot of sense to me.
That's great, thank you.
So
I'm not sure if we would be more, if we would if it would make sense to have a conversation about special ed ahead of this. I don't know if we have time in the next couple agendas, but since we know that's a topic that we all want to discuss and it's not super tightly linked to specifics in the budget, generally, it's like, it's more of a broader conversation that we've been talking about needing to have. So that might be able to happen before any of this, and then we could eliminate that as one of the.
I think there are elements that we definitely will be able to like updates on things like, you know, out of district costs, SAU 50 relationship. That there are several things that independent of any suggested, you know, they're just mandated.
Yeah.
So it's like, might as well go ahead and have those, we could have those conversations. Those could, well, we only have the one meeting in November. So it could be that December meeting, we're spending some time talking about, of course,
Yeah.
you know, so when Dan walks in tomorrow, I'll be surprised, Dan, this is what we're doing. But we could do some of those front load, some of that stuff, even if we still have a couple rounds of iterative process that may or may not lead to like some staffing adjustments in special education. That might not come until after, might be done enough to be able to have that conversation until after, but a lot of the other stuff we could probably preload for that first meeting in December and get some of that stuff out of the way.
I feel like that would be great because spending more time during the budget hearings on pieces of the budget that we can potentially control.
Right.
Instead of the stuff that we're legally obligated to do.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
I think would be really helpful.
Has his hand up too.
I think, Nathan. Nathan is first, so he had his hand up first, and Lee, then you're next.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say with this, obviously last year in, you know, late March, early April, going into late April, was the bridge that we had to cross with city council and the late communication that we had with them in terms of our numbers. So my only thought would be, if we could somehow throw in, and this wouldn't just be us, it would have to be Karen and her wing also with us to plan it, but a meeting with them early on. Very early on. I thought last year was now, but that's obviously not gonna happen this year. But the idea that like, if we sit down and they say like highly unlikely, but this, you guys can do this, it would be okay, like, that's great. But also the more possible outcome of, yeah, there's some things we gotta figure out, so let's do it now. That'd be my one thing.
Yeah, I think the only challenge is gonna be election. I mean, so the composition of both bodies will be, you know, will not be officially in place until January. So that makes it a little bit challenging. I think there's some hesitation, I think, for city staff, for the municipal side of city staff, I think it's difficult for them to say, here are hard and fast. I think they gave us some broad, I appreciate that they came and tried to give us some broad information, but I think it's hard for them to have something hard and fast until they have, you know, they could have half the city council turnover and look totally different. So I think it's challenging for city staff.
And make sure that they truly are focusing on the budget in that conversation too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nathan. Lee?
Yeah, so one of my questions I think might have been answered by Zach, which was, you know, if we're gonna have a conversation around special ed, you know, one of the big changes in numbers isn't just like the numbers around outplacement are never something that's solidified and never solidified by January or February timeframe. So from that perspective, that's got to be always challenging and always in flux. The other thing that I think I heard is that from a resource standpoint or resource planning standpoint, that's not going to be necessarily in place, and so the number still ends up being pretty significantly in flux. Is that what I heard you say, or no? Or am I
restate that? I'm not totally restate the resource question.
So in terms of resource planning for special education, those numbers aren't necessarily in place, and the need for resources is not necessarily in place to know what we'll actually need to budget for by the end of the budget cycle, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always the challenge, right? Because it's because that need and when the decisions are made around those needs doesn't fit on a fiscal year and fiscal cycle, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that you're right. We will always be chasing that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do a pretty good job though of looking at who we have now, who's aging out, who's coming in, you know, and we do get a pretty good grasp. We go person by person. I mean, you never see that because that's personal information, but you know, we do go pretty in depth on, all right, who's here? Are they coming back? Or are they not? Are they going from elementary to middle? Are they going out of district? They're staying in district? And there's a lot of moving parts to that, but I mean, even now, our special ed budget is not solidified. I mean, it's constantly changing.
Constantly, yes.
See, what, like the tuition
So-
rates,
Can I finish, please? So I have not finished my questions, which is, what does the board want out of the finance committee? Because originally the finance committee was intended to actually provide some guidance and help us expedite through the budget cycle process. Is that still the case? Is it not the case? Is that not something we actually can accomplish, Brian?
No, we can. I have nothing just to share yet because I'm not getting my budget requests from the department heads until Friday. Once I get them Friday and I start processing, and then we start meeting with them next week. And I believe that's a 2-week process of us going through them and justifying it. So then I'll have information to share with the finance committee that is something substantial that you'll be able to actually grasp onto and have discussions about. So
Is that still what the rest of the board would like, though?
Until we see, yeah, I mean, I think that would be fine if the finance committee met after you have some of those figures. That. I think that would be fine. Does everybody agree? To have them meet?
Is the intention the finance committee would sort of go with what are the, you know, for, you know, when the city manager came and presented to the board, we were asked basically to give what's our sort of dream budget and what things we would potentially need to add, like what would be the continuing operations, and if we have to go down to whatever their lower guidance is, what would we?
yeah, the ultimate goal would be 3 options, but
So would your committee kind of bring that proposal to the board?
yeah, we'll go a little more into the weeds. Otherwise, you'd spend hours here doing that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Weeds for special ed, for, you know, facilities, things like that. And so they can at least comprehend it and then condense it to a kind of a briefing to you on what that would be.
Because I think starting the conversation with those 3 types of guidance that we know the council, at least right now, is asking us for, with some input from the finance committee, could be a helpful way to jumpstart things.
And ultimately, the goal is to have the 3 options and say, all right, plan A, you need to give up this. Plan B, you get that. And plan C, we can put in those positions that you're looking for.
I'm just gonna say, from cost center leaders, what we're expecting this gradation of exactly what you're talking about, but even beyond A, B, and C, it's at such and such, where would you be? What would be your initial, like, we want each of those gradations of what those things, prioritization. But then we'll still get into really interesting, we're gonna make, you know, then we get into judgment calls about what we're doing.
Like jumpstarting that in the committee would make sense, though.
When do you think that committee could meet? What is your best guess?
We're looking 3 weeks from now at least. Before I can get something together to.
Mid to late November.
Okay.
Hopefully before Thanksgiving. It's not late this year, right?
So
Yes.
late Thanksgiving, shoot.
We can do this.
Okay, great. And I have Lee and Byron are on the finance committee, so, and of course you.
And they're not up for reelection.
Right, that's right. So they'll still be here.
And we've already met once, so.
Yes,
we have
yes,
met.
yes. Okay, great. Any other questions? The only other thing I was gonna say was, in previous years, we would have more budget meetings than this. We used to meet every Tuesday and every Thursday throughout the entire budget cycle. So I'm not suggesting that we do that, but if we feel we need another meeting, we can certainly make arrangements for that. Okay. And do we want to have special guests at any of these meetings? Have you guys thought about that?
Well, we thought it'd probably be special ed at one point, probably Kenny, just because of what he's dealing with. And then, you know, workshop sessions 3 and 4. Your call, who you want to hear from.
Lisa suggested the pillars of the strategic
I think we
plan.
should be speaking of those things. I mean, how are we advancing those things we've identified as our strategic goals?
Everyone all set with this? Okay, everyone mark it on your calendars, so I'll have it. Okay, Zach, you're gonna talk about?
Yeah, I'll just, I just wanted to, both for the board's sake and the public's sake. On the agenda, we have guidelines, student athletes prayer memo. And I'm not gonna give you a memo tonight, but I think I wanted to just make sure that we had a little bit of a conversation. Primarily for, I mean, the board has had the opportunity to get some legal advice on this topic. When we've been working at it a lot. I'm not going to be providing the board, and I think the board understands this, tonight, a set of guidelines that we're gonna provide the staff. We explored that for a while, trying to have some type of simple guidelines for staff around how to deal with student prayer. But as we worked through the legal details, it became clear that really this couldn't be reduced to a one size fits all approach. The Supreme Court cases make it clear that voluntary student-led prayer is protected speech, and that the simple discomfort with the expression from other students isn't enough for the school to intervene. And I think that the way the standard is what matters is whether the conduct becomes coercive, and coercive, I want to be careful, is not, the court would not say that peer pressure is coercive. This would be like you're being threatened, that if you don't pray, you're another student, you're not praying, that you could be physically harmed, or the institution in some way is threatening you around praying. It actually has to be disruptive to either the learning environment or wherever the school activity is. And that's the standard that we've always used around political speech for students. And what's changed with the court over the last 5 years or so is a shift towards that standard for religious speech in schools as well. So our focus right now is making sure staff understand where those boundaries are, that we handle each case as opposed to having one simple set of guidelines, that we're making sure we're following the law. We handle each situation case by case. And we had a whole bunch of people that were involved in conversations on this over the course of the last couple of weeks. The legal team here at the city, attorneys at Wadley Star and Peters, staff members, students, conversations with parents. And I think all those conversations have been, as people have tried to advocate for different things, have all been really respectful, and I've been appreciative of that. I think we have learned some things through those dialogues, but I think what's important for people to realize is that maybe some of the things in terms of religious expression that 10 years ago we would have assumed were not something that students could do in schools, for fear that it would create discomfort for other students, that the law has shifted through court cases back towards a greater lean towards individual rights of students who want to have religious expression. So as we move into the situation that had us deal with this was in the paper, as we move into the next athletic season, we are working with all the staff involved. We'll be having more conversations with students to make sure that folks basically understand that this is it is a protected right, and that we're gonna work with all the parties to make sure that those rights are protected, and simultaneously they're really thoughtful about students who do feel some sense of discomfort around making sure that they feel fully included in all of our programs at the same time. So, and I'll do some follow-up with I will be doing some additional follow-up with individual families connected with the issue that hit the paper, and just making sure that I can answer all their questions around any concerns they may have, and letting them know what's going to be possible in connection with the upcoming basketball season.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item.
You just have the list of Carrie's favorite, the list of overnight field trips. Acknowledgement of those, and then the item after that is in connection to New Franklin School. There's been some outreach from the PTO connected with New Franklin around a project on the, they've been working on a project connected to a basketball court in the back. Tennis court, they were gonna convert one of the tennis courts into a basketball court. And so there's been some outreach as the project became being bigger than initially what they had hoped. And there was some outreach to us and then us at the school department. And then also to recently to the city council about getting some additional funds to help complete that project. So I just want to make sure that the board was clear, and I gave you a memo on this. Depending on which agenda link you clicked, you may or may not have had access to it. But the big ones for us in terms of why right now, one, this would be an unbudgeted project for us right now. And so, especially in light of going through a budget process where we just did a lot of reductions off our initial proposal from the city. We're not in a position to shift the type of funds that people are talking about for this time around. Also, we have two big projects connected with New Franklin School that are going to affect the campus. And one is we've got the money in FY27 connected to playground reconstruction. We're to the shift is now $500,000, right? Because we've adjusted the planning piece, but $500,000 in playground rework at New Franklin. And then, of course,
Which may include moving the playground.
which the playgrounds actually have to potentially move. And then the other part of that is then, of course, the conversation we've had with you around, which you endorsed, the bigger renovation of New Franklin School, which based on the requests that we're making to the city would alter the footprint of the school. Now, we don't know where that's going to fall either. So with those two projects still up in the air, both of which could then potentially engage that set of tennis courts, we just don't feel while we don't have the funds, it's also not the appropriate time to start working on that project, because we don't know it's not work that 2 years from now we would tear up and redo. So we're really appreciative of all the advocacy that the PTO has been doing. I think it's a very engaged PTO. They did wonderful work on the garden out in front on stuff, and are really, I think, determined. And I think, ironically, coming out of redistricting and having an opportunity to see some of our other facilities, are super determined that their students are going to have at least an equivalent experience to what would be present in the other buildings. So I think they're doing a great job of advocating around a bunch of these things. We're just not in a position at the moment to, get into a tens of $1,000s project that we think may not last until, especially when we have these other things coming down the pike. So I just want to make sure the board was aware. I know you had some outreach. Yep.
Lisa.
I really appreciate that you took the time to sort of just explain this to folks publicly, because I do think we had a lot of questions from New Franklin and also just from other parents in the community, other schools, about how is the process supposed to work. I am curious, now that our facilities committee is convening soon, whether there will be potential either to add some parent members so that projects like this have a place to at least start a conversation and or have public comment at those meetings as a matter of course, so that they can bring those things. Because I do think beyond just the finances, being involved in the different PTAs and PTOs, like a lot of the frustration is not so much that they don't understand that there's a large price tag, but that they don't know where to go to have the conversations. And so I think if we feel like the facilities committee would be the place for that, I would love to see that as it's rebooting, give a place for either the PTOs or for parents from the different school communities who have projects that they want to bring forward to at least start those conversations. Like, is that feasible?
I think it seems like a place. I mean, those would be public meetings, and it seems like that's a place that's a good entry point for people, because usually two things are happening. Somebody has an interest in creating something new that they think would be really great for kids, or they see a deficiency that they're worried about, and they're not sure, like, where do I go? And sometimes, and that starts. So I think so I think the opportunity to have a clear advocacy point. And simultaneously, that also being a group of folks, a combination of staff and board members who can also be a repository of like, why do we do some of the things we do as well? So it's a place to go get information. Hey, I think it would be great if we had a swimming pool at such and such school. And it's like, okay, well, let us talk to you about that. And sometimes that's gonna be, all right, you know what, let's work on that, getting that proposed. And other times it's gonna be, well, let us tell you 6 years ago, we considered that, and this is the reason why it didn't happen, or this is what the concerns would be, and maybe this is a project that we've better taken up by the city, or it would be, you know, I think that both of those things could happen through, that committee is a great starting point for those conversations. Yeah.
That would be really cool, because I think anything that we can do to just reduce the confusion for some of our like most dedicated volunteers in terms of just where they go.
Yeah.
In the city.
Yeah.
Would be really great.
So during the facilities committee meeting, we'll be sure to have a public comment.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna suggest that at our first meeting to, as we sort of develop how it's gonna operate, but I think it's really important.
Carrie. So I don't like this. I think, I mean, I might be misinterpreting, you've had more conversations with folks. But I think we're saying no to something that I don't think there was an ask or a request for funding. I don't think that was like, it must be there for this project. Meaning, I think that giving something of like, this is what it would cost as an opportunity for them to decide on whether that's something they want to advocate for or not. I do have a hard time, I think recently being more into outdoor spaces at schools and specifically the high school area for cross country and then Don Darrow, like it is night and day. And that the fencing is all torn up, like there's like actual safety hazards there. And I know that some of like the cracks and whatever happen over time, but like it looks nothing like any of the other facilities. And so I guess my worry is even if it's, and because of the grade of that area over there, I mean, it's elevated, but the rest of it floods. Like I have a hard time thinking that that's where a new playground is gonna go and I just have too much knowledge of New Franklin right in that moment. So anyway, I guess my question would be, is there any way that you can, you know, like I also don't want an improvement that can be fundraised for, has a lot of energy behind and doesn't have to come from city funds to be squashed because we're not able to like be like, it's gonna cost 150,000.
So couple of different figures.
Yeah.
So again, so it wasn't so initially the impetus was not, it wasn't a school project. We weren't in the project at all.
Right.
So then it began, and then once people got engaged, this is my understanding and based on conversations. So if any of it ends up being slightly different, I apologize. But then once we get into it a little bit further, it's like, oh, we think this is gonna be $30,000. As a component was gonna be $30,000. It's like, I don't have $30,000, unbudgeted $30,000 just waiting to be spent. And as the city had engagement and there was conversation, I think DPW director's been out there, Kenny's been out there, deputy city manager's been out there to look at the space, and the number is getting thrown around right now to do the vision of what people would want is 150 might be a low estimate.
Okay.
So like those, so I think there's a desire to have that potentially have that type of facility. It's just outside of a budget cycle and with these two other projects coming, including the possibility that the expansion of we were talking about where the rises, the possible expansion of the footprint of New Franklin very likely could include a change of the leveling of the back of the property. So some of that dip slope could be, there could be changes that are happening to the campus in terms of the Grading, thank you, that's the terminology I'm looking for. So that could all be part of what happens in terms of, as we're working on the Reno stuff. So, we never want to turn down those things. I think this is the second project now in a short period of time where we have gotten into advocacy that has turned into non-school project management that has led to challenges, right? And so I think sometimes that's where there's a separation of like fundraising versus project engagement. Now, on the flip side, PTO basically exclusively, almost pretty much exclusively ran the garden project. And it looks great. But both in terms of the playground conversation that we're in, and now this conversation, we have groups of folks who are excited about doing good things for kids, who are not employees of the school district trying to run projects. And that gets us into interesting situations sometimes. So I think one of the things I think we want to fix over the long run is we want to get away from that in whatever way we can. At the same time, allow some type of, what Lisa's talking about, allow the ability to come and advocate and say, this is the types of things that should be being done, and have a group that people can talk to that leads to some type of action in the appropriate times when it should. So anyways.
Pip. I'm coming from a bit of the same place as Carrie. I'm not as familiar with New Franklin by any means, but I did just go over there last week and walk around and saw some of the concerns. And I agree about the fence issues. I think there are some real hazards. And so I totally understand your perspective of like trying to group the projects together and deal with them on the timeline that's planned. But I do think that there are some issues that need more immediate attention. And so maybe that's not a complete renovation to the, the full vision that people have expressed. But I do think addressing some of the safety concerns has to happen before 2027. Like that's just too far away. And so I wonder, you mentioned city funding. I know those courts are used by people other than the school. I've played tennis on them myself. Like they're available to the city. So I wonder about getting some funding at least to shore them up a little. I know there was also a temporary fix that seems to have made them maybe a little worse. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Well,
that,
and I
but
think that's part of the
it's,
story too.
Now become
Part of the story is to what
really
extent
dangerous.
it is like, so I think we're not in labor. We're already $8,000 in on the thing we didn't budget for because we're trying to help. Right. And then the outcome of that was people not being happy with how there was an attempt. And I understand why.
I think
I understand why.
it's a fix that's not gonna hold up.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't, right, no, I understand all that. And I think the other piece, if Kenny was here, Kenny would talk to the fact that court has been in a political no man's land between the city and the schools for years. And so I think even now I think this is right, if you can remember this, tell me, but when the rec did their needs assessment of the city, that was left off the needs assessment. And so there's still, so I think it has been a thing that has sat between the two entities for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of goes back to what Lisa was saying about how there's a lot of confusion about who's responsible for what.
Yep.
And that really needs to be defined between the city and the schools, I guess.
We need to fix it and click kind of situation for this kind of stuff. Like we shouldn't have a fence that's dangerous that is sitting out for years of
Well, and
budget
then
conversation.
There's also the fact that for some reason at the other schools, the work gets done. But then for some reason in New Franklin, it's not getting done. Like we have beautiful tennis courts at the high school and the community campus. And
No, I get that.
so what's going on?
We talked about this at
Why is it
rec
getting
board
left
actually
behind?
specifically.
It's some
There's
PTOs are
no-
doing.
there's no knowledge that rec was ever responsible for that court ever. And they don't maintain any of our playgrounds or other, so I guess, and I guess that's the thing, I think it's, at some point, it's just sort of like, the broken windows theory, the more broken windows in a neighborhood, like the more, you perceive less safety and, it's just like the kids in this environment. It's not great. I guess I'd say my one request would be like, yes, I guess this is not here, but if there can be, if there is a way that a quote could come from the school department that would say, this would cost $120,000 to do it. And we would need to manage it and own it and go forward with it. I think that there are folks that want a number. And I think that especially where it's a memorial project, there's a piece of healing and additional solace that this would offer. And so, I don't know, that would be my one request, would be, can a quote get generated and then put in the hands, and I understand the playground stuff and the management and the design, and so I think that might be part of the line that I want to draw, is like, a project can be funded by the PTO, but it is project managed by the city and the bandwidth, including, a project manager or a contracted person or all of that.
I think the original conceptualization was you take down tennis court, you take down the net. Yeah, and you paint what was there and you put up a couple hoops and done, which feels very manageable to people, like, oh, we could do that. And it's just, as folks have gotten into the projects, it's like, this is bigger. Gonna be, and now we need assistance. Which we want to give, but I'm happy to do the number thing. I know the number broadly, in a 5-minute conversation without somebody giving it to me in depth is 100,000 plus, approaching $150,000 to do this.
And maybe there's somebody who would donate their time or services too. I mean, I don't know how that works legally, but I think I agree with Carrie, at least. I think the flat out no is really hard. And I think that if we were at least to say, hey, here's the avenue we could try.
Right.
They can try. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But
yeah,
at least there's an opportunity, and at least we're responding.
So
to the
I think
request.
one thing I would want to say, because Kenny's not here, is it hasn't been a flat out no. So Kenny and Kenny's guys have done stuff connected to it and have offered to do other things. So I want to make sure, I would feel like it's a real disservice to Kenny if it was like, oh, people came and just said no. It was like, we didn't. Oh, and not even he didn't. It wasn't even, it was discussions.
I mean, Kenny was like, yeah, you guys get volunteers and we'll do ceiling and I'll come help you. Like, I mean.
Yeah, he was talking about coming in.
He was like doing it on.
Talking about coming in as on his own time.
I don't think that's the thing. I think this memo is a no to me. That's where I'm getting no. So.
Because I guess I get that, because that's what it is.
Exactly. But
it's a no for right now. It's not a no forever. It's just a no for right now. The school department is not in a position to fund the level of improvement in the project this fiscal year that people would like. And I just want to be
So
honest.
can we talk to the city council about it, about helping fund it?
Yeah, you always can. I mean, we've had some of that conversation. Yeah, there's been a couple rounds of staff conversation about what's possible.
Can the PTO raise some money?
So-
I mean, I don't expect them to raise 150,000, but could they raise?
Very patiently.
I think I don't know what they could do, but I did get some intel that the Gosling's basketball court, which is beautiful if you haven't seen it, is like brand spanking, I don't know when but it's brand new.
Yeah.
That was 120,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know anyway, I think it's an opportunity. I think that, yes, the PTO doesn't have that funds. Does someone want to do separate fundraising for that? And I would like to give them that opportunity, and I'll have more time in January, so I
There you
can
go.
work on it.
Genevieve.
So I can speak for the PTO at New Franklin as a parent of a daughter that went there. The PTO parents at New Franklin are extremely dedicated to their school because it sits between two highways and is ignored. The sound barrier wall, which I helped, was a part of fighting to get that, which they didn't get, but they got a nice wooden fence to go up eventually. So there's a lot of things. The swing that had to be replaced was replaced by the PTO. There is an outdoor learning classroom that was put in by our PTO. They raised the funds. My grandfather-in-law dedicated the plantings and all the trees where the parents came in and built that stage back there, which I know is going to be disturbed to some degree because I did see those plans and the extent of them putting 4 classrooms off the backside of that building definitely does mean that that playground is not there, is not staying there. They cannot stay there. It does have to be replaced. And we had a tennis club that played tennis on those courts, and it was atrocious. And we ourselves were asking, who do we go to? And it was always call the recs, call the rec, call the rec. They'll take care of everything. And the rec said no. So it is definitely something that they have been struggling with. I mean, like I said, my daughter's a freshman now. From kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, we had the no use of those courts, and they're just ignored and not taken care of. I understand why it can't be something now, but I tell you, that PTO is not poor. And they are willing to use their money, and they work very hard and very diligent to raise money for their school, and they have absolutely no we had, I don't even want to say it out loud, but it was it was a very healthy bank account for what we did contribute back into that school. So I know those parents are very dedicated. And I promise you, they will get it, Carrie. They absolutely will, because I know they won't stop. And I would stand there right alongside them to do so. I understand the delay in doing it, but I think safety hazards should take precedence over delaying it because it might impede another project. Safety should be number one. So if you do have a safety problem with those fencings, and you do, at least address some of those safety issues now. That's all.
Thank you, Genevieve. Jessica?
I'm not sure if my input is appreciated here, since I'm not, like, I'm the Portsmouth School Board, but I did oversee the playground renovation at the Newington Old Town Hall, and now we're also in the midst of trying to fundraise for our Newington playground to be replaced, because it's 35 years old. So I'm involved in that. My only agree with Zach, but asking for donations, I mean, we only have so many people around or companies around that are likely to donate. To donate a lot of money to a project that's going to be torn down 2 years later is going to have a lot of your companies saying, well, why did we donate here? So I do think some caution is worthwhile there, but obviously, yeah, safety makes sense, so.
Thank you. All right, well, how about for our next meeting, maybe we could have Kenny come, talk about how much would it cost just to make those safety improvements, like the fence? And then perhaps we can ask the PTO to raise X number of dollars of that, and somewhere we'll find the funding for the rest of it. Lisa?
I guess I'm just sort of thinking systemically about this because like I was the PTA president at Little Harbor, like what feels like a million years ago, when like our playground was a mess and we were having the same conversations about how much money can parents raise and how much can we get businesses to donate. And there was a lot of energy behind it. And at that point, Little Harbor was annoyed because Don Darrow had 5 years before that, like raised a bunch of money. And so I feel like there's this systemic problem that we're not addressing or naming. That's that we're not putting this stuff in the school or the city budget. You know, and I'm not dismissing, like I totally volunteer in all the PTAs. Like, I'm not dismissing that energy or the value of volunteerism, but I am questioning when we're going into like six-figure projects routinely and asking parents to essentially pay another tax on top of all their other taxes to pay for public facilities. So like, I wanna just be careful not to automatically assume that it's the job of parents to come up with like a six-figure dollar amount. I'm not disputing the energy or like the desire to help. But what do we value is, I guess, my question. And like, are we really gonna continue to always make it the responsibility of the people who have kids in the building to pay for what essentially are community facilities? So I don't know, I feel like I've said this before and it just gets me a little.
As
I worry
long
about
as
the
this-
equity and I worry about, like, are we just taking out of our budget stuff that should be, despite all of our budget challenges, something that we're budgeting for, because this is part of the education day.
As long as the city doesn't change its CIP goals, it's, you know, it's made a $1.8 million commitment to playgrounds at the 3 elementary schools. So I think that's a pretty significant shift in how folks are thinking about those types of projects. And I think there's an interesting, well, and then to what extent, well, anyways, I would just say that the city made that choice, and as long as they don't back away from it, which right now there's no indication that they will. We're already, you know, we're on track with the Little Harbor Pete project for the fall. If everything continues to go well, we should be able to have that done. And then we're off to New Franklin and then back to Tondero, and that was a big commitment from the city to say, we're not gonna have you raise those funds, we're gonna just put it in the budget.
I can just say 25 years ago, when I was involved with the playgrounds, parents raised half the money and the city gave us half the money. So I think parents and PTOs have been raising money for a long time in the school district. So I think it's, you know, it's just the way, tradition. It's been the tradition. So, well, what should we do? Can you make a presentation at the next meeting and we'll see how we can move forward?
I mean, have Kenny come in and talk about the specific, you know, just talk about about the project itself and about the tiers. I mean, you got one piece is what are safety concerns? How are we assessing safety concerns? And then how are we addressing those safety concerns? And then then the next tier would be what's a lowest end version of what we could do to assist, and then what's the kind of those price tags you were talking about, Carrie? Making sure there's kind of tiered price tags on what things would look like. I think Kenny is well versed in all of it and can give way more color commentary than I can. So.
Okay, is everyone all set? Thank you, everyone. A good discussion. Next, we have the school board email summary, which is in everybody's packet. We move on to the administrative report. Brian.
Here, you'll see in the packet your expenditure and revenue reports. Again, we're early in the year. This is for September. So it's not much to really report on. I think it's out of the ordinary. Everything seems to be on track. You'll probably, as we get into October, November, then you're going to see some more meat of the year starting to show up in those reports.
Okay, any questions for Carrie?
I was curious on the expenditures. I mean, I know it's not like overspending because it's mostly encumbrances, but the Tondero being so over.
Yeah, but this early in the year, usually what that is somebody has moved over the course of the summer and their payroll line hasn't been changed yet.
Oh, okay.
We do that reconciliation once we're in.
Okay.
Because you'll notice the other schools are quite healthy. in their
Yeah,
balance.
okay.
That's usually if you go down that list and you actually see the red numbers, pretty much all of them are people that are.
So like this, because the speech services was the same. I was like, is that really that far?
Nobody's overspent at this point,
Okay.
to a level that I'm probably concerned.
And the employee wellness line? Same. 130.
Yeah, one of the people in that cost center was moved to one of the schools.
Okay,
So,
okay.
that's why,
Thank you much.
just with payroll, it's more of a complicated process with payroll until we get our new ERP system, which will be a much quicker, easier process.
That's what everyone says before a new system comes.
To install it, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Brian? Okay, we will move on. I think we're on to policies. We'll hand it over to Pip.
All right, we have three policies that are going for second reading. And none of them had too much conversation last time, but we can entertain a motion to take one or all at a time.
Oh, I see. It's just first reading was on 10-4.
Yes, and I think Paulette's added that, which is very helpful, actually. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's been a lot of confusion with.
Make a motion to approve the three policies EBB, EBCH, IHBH.
Second.
All right. So again, we went over, we had the first reading of each of these on the 14th. And they all passed unanimously. There were some, as you might recall, there were minor changes to the first two, to school safety and chemical safety, that were a result of the 306 rule changes. And then the extended learning opportunities had a few more adjustments made since the last time we had it, or we saw it, but no, I'm sorry, since we had passed it a long time ago. It did not have any changes between this last time we saw it and today. And we had some conversation about how the changes have made it more, made applying for extended learning opportunities more accessible and a little more clear in terms of procedure and advertising, if you will, to let people know how to do that. Are there questions about any of them?
They all look great.
Okay.
I like to, I appreciate in EBB the call out to the specific statute that was added.
And what? Oh.
Don't worry about it.
In EBB, I see. Good. Good. Okay, then I will, or then I guess we'll take a vote. And do we need to do a roll call?
Yes. Lee Beckstead Muskie,
Yes.
Nancy Kleber,
Yes.
Kip Clues,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Lee Hudson,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yeah.
Victor Rappaport.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pip, and the members of the committee. And we have a meeting, I think, Monday, correct?
Yeah, I can give a little update now if you want. rather than
Okay.
Waiting for committee updates.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Wait a minute, we're not there yet.
yeah, I know. Okay, I was gonna wait. I will wait.
Trying to get done.
Okay, under new business, we have, we need a representative from the board to be on the Business Education Collaborative Committee. It has been Lisa, but are you interested in continuing that?
Am I on that?
I have.
Oh.
That's what I had.
Okay.
That's what happened to you, Lisa.
So just to refresh everyone's memory,
I guess
it
they-
met on October 15th. It meets 3 times a year. So you got 2 meetings left. One would be February 18th. The other is May, I think it's May 20, I believe, which will be a combo of that particular board meeting. Would be great that same day as if you're able to stay around, they're gonna do the signing day for CTE students going on to post-secondary and career opportunities, which is a great event. And then the award stuff, they're gonna try to combo it all. So you don't have to be there for all of those things, but you know, the board meeting is the important one, but then it'd be great if you also had the opportunity to join us for some of those other opportunities as well.
is ringing a bell. I believe I had a standing doctor's appointment for one of my kids. This was like a daytime, like a morning
Yes,
one, right?
usually.
The signing one was a morning. These are mornings. Yeah, this is
Yes,
8
that
a.m.
was
8
the
a.m.
issue. I could not
Yeah.
be there at the time that
Okay.
they
Yeah.
met.
Are you interested in staying on it?
No,
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 still
no,
has standing meeting.
no.
So the appointment
Sorry.
still stands with your child.
Yes. Sorry.
I didn't
Conflict
understand
is
it,
still.
so-
The
Okay.
next ones are until next year, are they?
February
That's just
18th, so
February.
you could.
We could wait till
you
the
could punt-
election.
You could punt until
Oh,
the
okay.
election. and-
Yeah.
Okay. and then
That's what I-
maybe-
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Saying
You could find-
scenic thing.
All right,
Punt. We should miss
all
that.
right.
Sorry.
I can say that I was on it for a little while and it's a very uplifting committee, to
Yeah,
be
it
honest,
is.
because
Yeah,
they
it
do
is.
great stuff and
You really do.
yeah, it's, and it only meets 3 to 4 times a year, so there's that too. But 8 a.m. is a tough one for some of us.
Okay, well, we will wait till our till our reorganization meeting, when we look at all the committees again. Okay, committee updates. Pip, do you want to start?
Sure. So the policy committee had a meeting last week, with our attorneys, Wadley and Starr, and our city attorney, Susan Morrell. And, we had it was considered a non-meeting with council for the committee itself. So I can't give you too many details on what we discussed, but, I did want to let you know that that meeting was planned for 15 minutes and it took up our entire hour and 20 minutes at least. So we have added another meeting for next week on November 3rd at 10 a.m. Where we will specifically be discussing policies JBAB, our gender identity and expression policy, and JLP, which is the parental rights policy. So those two are on that agenda. And then we will be coming back to the board to have yet another non-public opportunity with council to discuss those two policies at the board level. And then the committee will bring its recommendation to the board at hopefully the following board meeting, to a vote. And we did get some clarification. The reason these are coming back, even though I think at least one of them failed first reading, we got some clarification from the legal counsel that when a policy fails first reading, our committee should seek legal counsel on whether or not if it's a required policy, whether or not what addition or what changes we could make to it to bring it back, and whether we should bring it back. And if we bring it back again and it fails first reading again, then we should let it die. And because she said there was no reason to just keep rehashing the same thing over and over when we knew it was gonna fail. And then at that point, we would wait till there was some legal reason to address it again, or whether, or we had a turnover in session of our board, which would be every 2 years when we have elections. So that's the policy update for now, and feel free to send any questions or come to our meetings if you want to talk about policies.
Thank you. Any
Oh,
other?
I'm sorry, you don't get to talk about the policies when you're at our meetings. You get to listen and then maybe ask questions later.
I just wanted to throw on something I forgot at the beginning, so pretend that this is my committee report from the School Board Association. But there was an effort, and I have some contact information about a group forming of school board members that are sort of advocating around school care and the costs burden, whatever, I don't know what you'd call it, the assessment burden. And so if there's, I think in general, it's always good to have a member be involved in anything like that, to understand what's going on across the state advocacy. So I have contact information if we want to point someone in that direction.
We could add that to our list of committees.
I don't know where this is gonna go, but I don't think it would be like a formal committee. I think we would maybe endorse someone of like, yes, Lisa, you will participate with this group.
Is this the school board advocacy network or is this something different?
Not the legislative one.
Gotcha, okay.
That, there's a Dover person who runs a legislative.
Yeah, I go to the legislative one.
This is a
Separate
different
one
one.
just for
This is
school care?
specific around school care and the recent assessments.
How often do they meet? Do you know?
No idea.
Is anyone interested in?
I think this is kind of an ad hoc.
Was this the one that was started by
I
the
think so.
board chair up in Governor Whitworth?
I will find
There
out.
was a group that was, I think his name is Brendan DeShays, I think.
No, it was not him. He was there, I believe.
Because what he's trying to do is get a group of school districts together to refuse to pay the assessments. That's what he's trying to do.
SAU 88. So.
Well, why don't we look into it and we'll report at the next meeting? And see if there's any interest in anyone attending the meeting.
Lebanon.
I don't know. All right, we'll research it and see if there's any interest in anyone participating. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right, what else? Yeah, okay, any other committee updates? Future agenda requests to Brian and me, and we'll discuss them at the agenda setting meeting. Reopen public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, thank you, Amy. We'll close the public comment. And do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? We're supposed to do a roll call.
Lee, you
Are
good?
you okay? If we
I'm
adjourn-
good.
Thank you, Lee, for moving there.
Yeah, thanks for helping me out.
Okay, and take care. All right, and we have.
Cheers, have a good evening.
Set, right? Agenda said.
I think, did Paulette reach out? Paulette was trying to make sure